It can lead to dementia, heart disease, stroke. It can increase your risk of premature death by 30%. And studies in the U.S. show it's as deadly as smoking 15 cigarettes every day. So what is this dangerous thing I'm talking about? Well, it is loneliness. 40% of us here in this country say we suffer from it some or all of the time. But I don't want you to get discouraged or worry, because we have some great tips for you to overcome it today. And joining me is Becky Harling with more.
Hey, it's great to be with you here today, Cheryl.
It's so great to have you. And I love talking about this topic because I think everyone's lonely at different times in their lives.
Yes.
And obviously in different seasons, you might experience it more if you're going through a divorce, or you're single, or you're in a marriage where you feel lonely. Now, you wrote a book about this, Cultivating Deeper Connections. Why did you want to tackle loneliness?
You know, there was a season in my life where my husband and I were traveling nonstop. And for about 4 years, I think we did 65 countries. And it was all good stuff, you know. But I remember coming home one time after a trip and just saying, I am incredibly lonely. And my husband looked at me like, are you nuts? We've been with thousands of people. And as I thought about it, I thought, yeah, we've been with people, but I haven't felt connected to those people. And loneliness is not really the absence of people. It's the absence of feeling connected. And so I began to realize, like, this is epidemic in our culture right now. And God just laid it on my heart then to begin doing more research and to figuring out, how do we move past this?
Yeah, you're not just making the word epidemic up. People have actually called it an epidemic. It's so prevalent. COVID obviously made it worse. Technology, instead of connecting us, has made it worse. Now you say, and I don't want to put just a Band-Aid over it, like, you know, like just, oh, have a relationship with God, you'll be fine. But a deep connection with God is part of addressing it, correct?
Absolutely, because we were designed in the image of a relational God. And so he designed us to have that deep, intimate connection with him, but also with others. And so I like to say that your deepest attachment needs to be to God. And once that's firm and secure, and you understand how loved you are by God, then you're able to reach out of yourself and love other people well.
Yeah, I love that, because I think that connection with God is healing, and sometimes we need things healed in us to make connections with others. We don't even realize that we could be part of the problem. So what are some of the things we do, or the behaviors that we have, that actually are pushing people away without us realizing it?
Man, there are quite a few.
Top three.
Top three. That's great. I think one of the top ones is there's something about being insecure in our humanness where we feel like we have to come on as the expert. You know, we see this all the time. And so people come into a conversation and they consider themselves the expert. And so rather than really being curious about the other person or inviting their ideas or opinions, they want to be the one to tell people what's, you know, right and wrong, what is the expert opinion on something. And that's hindering our relationships, you know. Another one is a critical spirit. Boy, there's a lot of that right now, right? We live in one of the most polarized cultures of all time. Yeah. And so if I'm looking at you and I'm thinking this is what's wrong with Cheryl, you're not going to want to spend time with me. And so we're sabotaging our relationships, right? And so I like to say that we need to look at everybody as being made in the image of God, and that each person has something valuable to offer us. So those are two of the things we're doing. Another thing is, and I hate to bring it up, but I need to, is our cell phones, right? We have become addicted to our cell phones. And so we're in a conversation with somebody and we're scrolling Instagram, or, you know, I went to a playground recently and I'm watching all these young moms there and their kids are going bananas on the playground, but they're not watching and savoring the moments with their kids. They're on Instagram and Facebook and social media. And so if we're really going to get back to savoring our relationships, we have to be willing to part with our cell phones a little bit.
Put them down. And you say that our attention span has actually decreased. Like, it isn't even just, even if you're not on your phone, our ability to listen to somebody and really engage, look them in the eye, hear what they're saying, respond, we've lost that. It's down to, what did you say, 8 seconds?
Yeah, it's 8 seconds, which, by the way, is less than the attention span of a goldfish. So, I mean, that's not speaking too well of us. We've got to do better.
You know, right now, some people are getting ready to say to their spouse, you have the attention span of a goldfish.
Right, that's not the best approach, but, it's truth, apparently.
Oh, and the other thing about social media, I think, that you talk about in the book is comparing, which is, I think we've always done. I mean, I was growing up, people were saying keeping up with the Joneses was the whole thing, right? Your neighbor or whatever.
Yes.
But now you can see all the neighbors in the world.
Yes.
And you can compare yourself.
Yeah, and I think it's a big temptation for us, Instagram and some of the social media. And I mean, I have an Instagram account, right? So I'm not bashing Instagram, but you can look at somebody else and, you can begin to compare your life to theirs, like, okay, this woman had a baby and in 6 weeks she's back in a size 2, and maybe you're struggling with the baby weight gain. The last thing you need is to compare yourself to that young mom who's back in her size 2, but we compare in a million different ways. We compare achievements. Well, why is this person excelling and I'm not? Or why did they have the beautiful home and I don't? Or why is their husband so kind and mine, doesn't have the time of day for me? Or why is she married and I'm single? But comparison isn't helping us. It creates competition, and that's not good for connection.
You can see how that puts a wall up. I have one friend who cheers me on no matter what good thing happens to me, like genuinely is so excited and happy for me. I never feel that kind of, I wish that was me. Why did you get that? I never feel it with her, but I think that's rare. And I love how you talk about in the book, like, you struggle with that. We all struggle with comparison.
Yes.
So you gave some great tips about something you do when that feeling comes over you.
Yeah, you start cheering. First of all, you cheer out loud for the other person. My granddaughter is amazing at this. She runs track. And when she finishes her race, you see her on the sidelines and she's cheering for everybody else, every other school. So start cheering for your friends. Be the first to tell your friend what a great job they've done on whatever, whether it's cooking a meal, cleaning the house, or raising their kids. Cheer them on. And then go to the Lord and ask him to multiply how great their life is, basically. You just go to the Lord and say, Lord, bless this person, If it's a friend that's written a book, Lord, help that book to hit the New York Times bestseller list. Or if it's a mom struggling with 3 little kids, Lord, just bless her. And I'm not going to compare my life to her, even if I want to have children and I can't. Instead, I'm going to pray for those kids to grow up and love Jesus. And as we pray blessing over other people, our tendency to compare diminishes.
It's the opposite of how we're feeling. We're like, I want to have that too. It's not that I don't want you to have it. I just want to have it
right.
Too. But when you bless them and say, Lord, bless them more, it's going against those bad feelings, really, with something supernatural and the true heart of God for people, which is to consider everyone better than yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You talk about humility and you give this quote that you heard from someone, and I love it. It says, it's hard to throw stones if you're busy washing someone's feet. It's probably my favorite quote of the whole book. Talk to me about that whole idea when you're serving with a pure heart. You can't be criticizing. You can't be comparing.
No, you can't be. Our ultimate example really is Jesus, right? Because Philippians 2 tells us that we're to have the attitude of Christ. And he was humble. But there is such a lack of humility in our culture because we all want to prove ourselves. And so then that makes us critical of other people. But if you're actually going into relationships thinking, how can I serve this person? How can I bless their life? Whether in big ways or small ways, and I'm taking the posture of a servant, I'm putting on humility. And humility says, I'm not going to get my feelings hurt if my friend can't show up for coffee sometime. Instead, I'm going to think the best of my friend, and I'm going to bless her.
That taking offense, getting defensive, some of those behaviors, I don't even think we know that we have sometimes. That is getting in the way of relationships. Somebody's overwhelmed and busy, and we're taking it like it's all about us.
Yes.
Like, you're just ignoring me. You don't like me anymore. Like, And none of that's true. These are all just lies that we're believing.
Yeah, we do that to ourselves. We really have to watch our self-talk and change the narrative, right? I mean, I remember being in a conversation with a mentor years ago. I think I was a teenager. And she said, Becky, you have a very sensitive nature. And she said, that's a beautiful gift from God that's going to serve you well. But you have got to be careful, because if you allow yourself to get your feelings hurt all the time, God's not going to be able to use you like he can if you channel that sensitivity towards other people. And I never forgot her words.
And that even hurt you at the time a little
bit.
Like,
it sure did. I was like 16, I think.
Oh, but it served you well in life.
It has, because people aren't out to hurt you most of the time. They're caught up. And I just have found that when people disappoint you, offer that person understanding, because most of the time you don't know everything going on in their life. You know, maybe your friend is going through a health crisis, so she can't meet you for lunch. Or maybe things have fallen apart, or she's had a fight with her spouse and she just feels like she's not up to it. Offer understanding, because then you won't get your feelings hurt and you won't be so tempted to take offense.
Yeah, moderating those expectations is so huge. You know, I just want to normalize loneliness. Everybody experiences it. So I think if anybody watching, if you feel lonely, normal, 100% normal. It's part of the human experience. But what can someone watching do today to start building new connections or trying to address that in a really substantial way?
Yeah, I would say take baby steps. The first thing you should do is reach out, either to a friend, or if you say, I don't have any friends, reach out to somebody that you would like to be friends with and just say, hey, let's get together for coffee. Tell me your story. I want to know you. And don't you do all the talking. Just reach out to them and say, hey, Cheryl, I want to know your story. You know, I want to hear who you are. Another practical tip that I give people is invite somebody into your home. You know, God really spoke to me about this during the pandemic, actually, because I realized I had gotten in the habit of always taking people out. And that's fun. But when you bring somebody into your home and you say, hey, come have a cup of tea or coffee with me, or come over for dinner. It's not going to be a gourmet meal. Maybe we're just going to get pizza. But they're in your home and you're able to get to know them more deeply, and you're able to pray together. So those are 2 tips right off the bat.
I love that, because you talk about it almost as imperfect hospitality. Like, you have to let go of the idea of being perfect, because intimacy actually sometimes is connecting with people in your imperfection, which is so beautiful. And there's so much more to this book. Thank you so much for writing it. It's Cultivating Deeper Connections in a Lonely World. Becky Harling, you're going to want to get your hands on this book. Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for addressing this really important issue.
Thank you for having me.
We loved having you. And, you know, if you're saying, man, that's me, I've gotten disconnected from people in my life, feel like people don't understand what's going on with me, that is normal. That's part of being human, but you don't have to stay there. You can get the book. That would be one good thing. Lots of great suggestions in there on things you can work on toward that. But also, we would love to just be there for you, whatever you're going through. That's why our prayer lines are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because we know there are seasons sometimes you need to talk to a stranger and tell them the truth about what's really going on with you. And you're going to just meet so much love and understanding and compassion, and we will pray for you. Give us a call. We would love to do that. 1-866-273-4444. You can email us at prayer@crossroads.ca. You can chat at crossroads.ca. But you don't have to be alone. We want to be there for you, and God is there for you. Hope you're encouraged today.